David, I think we got the audio gremlins out of the computer. Maybe. David, you with us?
Hope so. Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
We
Very
gotcha.
nice. Okay, so in a nutshell.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. It happens. Trust me. You were explaining in a nutshell the importance of Section 230. Just give us the Cliff Notes version of what it does and why it is so such a lightning rod.
Yes. So this was the bill that was passed out of Congress and signed into law in 1996, the Communications Decency Act. And Section 230 was originally created before social media even existed. It was back when Prodigy and AOL and CompuServe were the primary services that provided users the ability to host chat rooms. And it was determined early for two reasons: that these services would not be held liable for user content on those platforms. First of all, is the First Amendment, right? In our country, we are afforded the opportunity to say and believe what we want. The old phrase that I may not agree with what you say, but I'll fight for your right to say it. And secondly, at the very early foundational time for the internet, it was important that it was able to grow. And the concern was, if lawsuits would be created, it would stifle the ability for the internet to grow and for those companies to make money early on to basically create what we have today. So that's what 230 basically states. And here we are with social media. No one foresaw back in 1996 that we'd have TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and Google platforms and such. And so now they're trying to apply that same standard to these big tech companies.
A lot to regulate, a lot to get your arms around, to even discuss where to begin for the changes that need to happen to keep the internet a safer place and to keep this stuff from happening. Is there a space for regulation? We talk about what needs to happen now, what changes need to be made to Section 230 to reflect the society that we live in today. It is a different world.
It absolutely is. And I think the challenge is that who takes care of that, right? Whose responsibility is it? So the reason why the Supreme Court deferred on this and actually remanded it back to the Ninth Circuit Court is because this was a law that was created in the legislative process, not in the judicial process. And so a lot of people believe that this falls on the shoulders of Congress to perhaps pass legislation to hold these tech companies accountable. And content moderation is a big part of what they do. I mean, if you talk to anyone who works at Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, they have scores of people who are looking at content on a daily basis. But as you know, there are billions of users all across the world. And so the ability to keep up with that in real time is a real challenge. So they rely on algorithms and other sorts of things to try to do it manually, but it's very difficult. You definitely need human interaction because as we've seen with AI and the evolution of that, there's a concern about whether some content is being censored maybe by accident. So therefore, that causes challenges as well.
It's such an interesting issue on two fronts. Number one, when you said at the very start of the interview that this law was around before social media, it's like imagining medieval times, because now the whole world functions on social media. So it kind of begs the question, well, if something was in place before social media and now we're consumed with social media, that the law does have to be updated to reflect reality. That is a fair position. What's also a fair position is to say, how can Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, with billions of users around the world, really police itself? There's not a department big enough to police everything, so something's always going to get through. So how can we keep up with the times but also be realistic at the same time? There is bipartisan support to change Section 230, different reasons, but we agree something needs to be done. So realistically, where do you think this thing is going?
Right, so you have to keep in mind 2005 is when YouTube was created, right? Or Google came into being in YouTube, 2006 era, 2007 for Twitter. So this is 10 years after the act was passed in the first place. And then you haven't even accounted to the international law, right? So the laws here in this country are very open, but there are countries around the world who actually limit free speech. I'm thinking of China, I'm thinking of Russia and others. And so we haven't talked about how that actually has implications there. And so I don't think we want to live in a world where the internet is censored and over-regulated. I think that, particularly as Americans, we value our right of free speech. But I think it comes down to civility, to be honest, right? It comes down to how we interact with each other, and that we should not use these tools to incite violence or divide or to attack others.
But people
that was not the goal of these.
But people do.
I know they do.
People
That's
do.
human nature, unfortunately. And if you can figure out how to fix human nature, man, let me know, right?
It's true. No, it is true. It is true. David, I can talk to you about this all day. I'm fascinated by this topic. And maybe the bottom line is, you know, don't believe everything on your news feed, no matter what platform it is. And common sense and rationality should prevail no matter the platform you're looking at. Maybe that whole thing, free thinking, critical thinking. Anyway.
Yeah. And there's my mom gave me, which is be nice to everyone and treat everyone with kindness, right? Let's try to do that, right?
Golden rule, right? Can never go wrong with the golden rule.
Yes, thank you.
All right, David. Thank you so much for giving us
Thank you,
some time.
Rob and Alexa.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.